this lecture, we will examine institutional discrimination. This topic is important to geographers to see how the practice of institutional discrimination has influenced the spatial organization of people and their activities. Institutional discrimination, often grounded in racial views, influenced the development of places. Institutional discrimination is defined as a situation in which the policies, practices, or laws of an organization or government disadvantage people because of their cultural differences. Let's look at two examples. The first one looks at race and place in Chinatown in downtown Vancouver, Canada. In a study done by K. Anderson in 1987, referred to Race Makes Place and Place Makes Race, she concluded that attitudes about racial differences like appearance, language, religion, and other customs in Chinatown had a strong association as negative characteristics, therefore influencing city policies. Race makes place refers to the perception that Chinatown, because of its people, was perceived to be an opium den, an unsanitary place as depicted in the 1907 newspaper illustration. In other words, race was creating the stigma of the place because the Chinese immigrants were seen as inferior to whites of European descent. However, in actuality, many of the Chinese operated laundry businesses, which is considered to be the business of the cleanliness, and Chinatown was not a center of epidemics. Then in turn, place makes race refers to the stigmatization of Chinatown as a socially troubled area, which influenced the civil leaders to create rules and regulations in order to control Chinatown's perceived problems. This action reinforced racialized views of the Chinese as a different breed of people who needed to be spatially separated and monitored. In other words, the place was creating the race through institutionalized discrimination. Some of the practices were restricting locations of Chinese-operated laundries, treating Chinatown like a factory, a place needed frequent inspections, and targeting Chinese homes and buildings deemed unsanitary for destruction. Today, Vancouver's Chinatown is widely perceived to be a popular destination and downtown attraction. The other example involves apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid, meaning apartness, refers to the government-sponsored policy of racial segregation and discrimination that came to define South Africa and regulated the social relations and opportunities of its people. Designed as a comprehensive system, apartheid operated on two spatial scales. At the national scale, there was grand apartheid, intended to separate population groups territorially. Legislation authorized the creation of black homelands as shown in the top right map. At the individual scale, there was a petty apartheid, which resulted in the segregation of public facilities, including restrooms, drinking fountains, schools, and beaches as shown in the bottom left photo. Townships were also formed, achieving complete physical segregation in cities, which proved to be complicated and unreasonable because of labor needs. Many blacks were employed by whites as housekeepers, while many others worked in construction. Therefore, black residential areas called townships formed on the outer edges of South African cities. Still in existence, these townships are in effect slums as shown in the photo at the bottom right. The history of South African apartheid began basically when European colonizers of Dutch descent, who called themselves Boers, meaning farmers in Dutch, arrived in Cape Town in 1652. Today, persons of Dutch descent living in South Africa usually call themselves Afrikaners, derived from the language they speak called Afrikaans. Britain also sent settlers towards the end of the 18th century, and to avoid war, the Dutch migrated inland. When South Africa achieved independence in 1910, it formalized a system of white minority rule. At the time, the population was 69% black and only 20% white. Then, in 1949, the Afrikaner National Party gained power. One of the main components of their platform was Baskap, a term meaning to keep blacks in their place. In 1948, apartheid officially became state policy. Please pause the video and answer the following. Compare and contrast the two examples of institutionalized discrimination, Vancouver Chinatown and apartheid South Africa. In your own words, using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific in your answer.